Hey everyone, welcome to Aude and Tulava, where we're walking our way through Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. Today, we're talking about Chapter 2, The Shadow of the Past. We'll start back up reminded that Bilbo left the Shire talking about his departure. Other hobbits are concerned that Gandalf is influencing Frodo and they can't get over the fact that Frodo won't mourn the clearly dead Bilbo, but instead continues to have parties celebrating their birthdays together. Here we learn that Frodo's best couple of friends are Merry Brandybuck and Pippin Took, you know. People start to note Frodo being well-preserved, just like Bilbo. If you recall Bilbo telling Gandalf he felt like butter scraped over too much bread, this should start to concern you, rather than just lead you to thinking Frodo's genetics are the answer. As Frodo's 50th birthday approached, we see him starting to get, well, let's just call it an ominous feeling. Something to note here. For anyone keeping track, it's been almost now 17 years since Bilbo disappeared. The movies feel like it's been a matter of months, if not just days, since Bilbo left. Frodo went from 33 to almost 50 in about 3 pages. The books don't quite have the same sense of urgency that the movies provided. While the journey does become dire and the timing does come down to the edge of a knife, it's not, that white knuckle affair all the way through. Now we hear tales of elves traveling west and leaving Middle-earth forever. Why? Well, that would take an entire video, if not a class itself, to explain. Leave a comment below if you want me to go over why the elves are leaving Middle-earth behind and what it really signifies. Dwarves traveling west start to bring rumors of the enemy in the land of Mordor. That's a capital E and a capital M. The Necromancer was driven from Mirkwood by the White Council, that was while Gandalf was MIA in The Hobbit, and the Dark Tower was rebuilt. These things are all said like we should know what they're talking about. This is a bit of what we like to kind of call a textual ruin. It's a reference in the text talking about a piece of common knowledge among the people in the book. It's, like referencing Helen of Troy's beauty, something like that. But we will learn quite a bit more about who and what that means as we go. And now we get back to the regular hobbits. Of course, they're in a pub. I love this part. Sam's discussion with Ted Sandyman is just this little back and forth between a dreamer and a pragmatist. Sam has spent years listening to Mr. Bilbo tell him tales, and he just wants to see all the wonders out in the world that Bilbo shared. Ted will not believe anything he hasn't seen for himself, proof or no. We get a quick foreshadowing of the Ents and Entwives, but then move on to the elves. And here we get a glimpse of Bilbo's teaching of Sam. They are sailing over the sea. They're going into the west and leaving us, said Sam, half chanting the words, shaking his head sadly and solemnly. Ted responds by laughing and saying, well, that isn't anything new if you believe the old tales, and I don't see what it matters to me or you. See, even old Ted Sandyman has heard the tales telling of the elves leaving, but can't see how it even matters in his day-to-day life. Have you ever felt like Sam here, just, trying to share some stories? Maybe trying to explain why it's so frustrating that Faramir takes Frodo to Osgiliath in the movies and they just don't want to hear it. I feel like a few of us just really been right there with Sam, you're right? Couple. Now, as I was going over this passage, getting my script ready, I noticed something. Listen here to what Tolkien writes as Sam was leaving. He had a good deal to think about. For one thing, there was a lot to do up in the Bag End Garden, and he would have a busy day tomorrow if the weather cleared. The grass was growing fast, but Sam had more on his mind than gardening. After a while, he sighed, got up, and went out. And a couple of lines later, he walks home under the early stars through Hobbiton up the hill, whistling softly and thoughtfully. Did you catch it? But Sam had more on his mind than gardening. So back up earlier in the chapter, it says Frodo began to feel restless as his 50th birthday approached. Then at the beginning of this section of Sam and Ted talking, it says one evening in the spring of Frodo's 50th year, Sam is thinking about the conspiracy, which we'll learn about later. He's the main spy, and the talk with Ted Sandyman made him think about Bilbo and his adventures, and now thinking about Frodo leaving. If we remember forward, as Corey Olson likes to say, in the house in Crickhollow, Merry states he expected Frodo to take off without anyone with him. So I think here Sam begins thinking about all the elves and all the stories he heard from Bilbo, but this leads him down the path of Frodo and making sure Frodo doesn't run off by himself the way Bilbo did about 80 years ago. But while Sam is walking home thinking through his conspiracy, Gandalf shows up to Frodo's window after a 9-year absence. Here's where we start talking about the ring and why the ring is so important. The Rings of Power, not the show, were created by elves in Eregion in the Second Age, and at this point Gandalf suspects Bilbo, now Frodo's ring, is the one ring made by Sauron, though he doesn't go into detail of the making of the other rings or what happened in Eregion. So let me know, comments below of course, if you'd like me to do a video on the making of the Rings of Power and the Second Age, and we can probably do a little detour while we walk through The Lord of the Rings. We will learn a little more about their making during the Council of Elrond as well. Right now, Gandalf only has guesses. The story Bilbo originally told the dwarves about how he came to be in possession of the ring gave Gandalf pause. It wasn't like Bilbo to lie. And when Bilbo left the Shire, his actions were not in character for him either. An important point comes up here. Gandalf says Bilbo immediately felt better when he took the ring off, and that he gave it up in the end of his own accord. Now, this is an important point. We gain a small insight into the nature of the ring here. I think it would be safe to say the ring does not want to be given up. If Bilbo felt a sort of relief and gave it up himself. So we might be able to say it's in the ring's nature to push people to want more, push them to greed. Keep that in mind as we learn more about Gollum and how others interact with the ring, and how the ring interacts with others. Gandalf finally throws the ring into the fire to finally prove his theory. Of course, we finally see the beautiful calligraphy of the horrible language. We finally know the ring is the one ring forged by Sauron to rule all the other rings. But Sauron was defeated at the end of the Second Age by Gil-galad and Elendil, and the ring taken up by Isildur, and of course lost again until Gollum. Here, Frodo learns probably the most disturbing piece of news yet. Gollum is distantly akin to hobbits. I think it goes to show that his reaction to learning this is harsher than anything else that he learned talking to Gandalf. Here we get a look into what Frodo finds important. He takes pride in being a hobbit, the ideals that hobbits hold that are talked about in the prologue, for they love peace and quiet, good-tilled earth. A well-ordered, well-farmed countryside was their favorite haunt. These are things the hobbits value, and Gollum killed a relative for a piece of jewelry, almost killed Frodo's uncle Bilbo, and is trying to track now Frodo down, or Bilbo down, or whoever. He just wants his ring back. To branch out to another series and quote Wizard Peabody in the Dresden Files, Gollum is untidy, plus a murderer. Of course, Sauron knows where the ring is, as Gollum made his way down to Mordor and was pretty obviously captured. And now we come to it. Pity. Frodo says, what a pity that Bilbo did not stab that vile creature when he had a chance. Gandalf replies, pity. It was pity that stayed his hand, pity and mercy, not to strike without need. And he has been well rewarded, Frodo. Be sure that he took so little hurt from the evil and escaped in the end because he began his ownership of the ring cell with pity. Another glimpse into the nature of the ring. While it seems to feed greed and keeps people from getting rid of it, also seems to feed on or enhance the nature of the person possessing it. Gollum started his ownership of the ring with murder. He turned into a wretched creature, hiding from the light, swimming in hidden seas beneath the mountain. Bilbo started his possession with pity and mercy. One doesn't have to look far to see mercy especially having an important role in Tolkien's life. Whatever you believe about the Catholic faith, Tolkien did believe, and mercy takes a huge role. And it's no surprise it shows up here. I think it's pretty easy to come to the conclusion Bilbo was saved by his pity and his mercy. But here lies the rub. Frodo has already possessed the ring for 17 years. And when Gandalf challenges him to throw it into the fire, Frodo finds the ring back in his pocket before he realizes what's even happened. While he wishes the ring to be destroyed, he doesn't think he could even do it himself. Even trying to give it to Gandalf to get rid of it backfires. Do not tempt me, for I do not wish to become like the Dark Lord himself. Yet the way of the ring to my heart is by pity, pity for weakness, and the desire of strength to do good. Do not tempt me. I dare not take it, not even to keep it safe, unused. The wish to wield it would be too great for my strength. I shall have such need of it. Great perils lie before me. The desires of Gandalf's heart would be suborned into evil by the ring. It plays on the nature of the person who possesses it. Here, Frodo makes the decision to take the ring and leave the Shire and perform his reverse quest, get rid of the magic item. Unlike the movies, they decide they can take some time before he has to leave. And at this point in the story, we get to make up a word, or rather, I get to steal something from Corey Olsen and the lovely people who watch Exploring Lord of the Rings, infenestration. Sam is discovered outside the window. Remember, he had a lot more on his mind than gardening and is infenestrated. Now, defenestration is the act of throwing someone out of window. Thus, infenestrated is bringing someone in through the window. Sam is punished for his impudence of listening outside the window by being co-opted into leaving and going with Frodo on his reverse quest. Here we see again what I could kind of think of as the provincial mind of Sam, begging Gandalf to not turn him into anything unnatural. But we see him really start to become interested when he thinks of going, and then he could see the elves. He'll get to see the elves after all before they finally go sailing off into the west. That's the end of chapter 2. Thank you for watching. For much more Lord of the Rings and Tolkien related videos, please like and subscribe. If you're looking for an even deeper dive into Tolkien's Legendarium, check out the Prancing Pony podcast and Corey Olsen's Exploring Lord of the Rings on your podcast platform of choice. And I'll link them below in the description as well. And until next time, Aure and Tulava, day shall come again.